Want to know the secret to making paint from a desert plant? Come with me as I forage wild yucca fruit and transform it into beautiful pottery paint using ancient, all-natural techniques. You know, my dad used to say you got to make hay when the sun shines. So the yucca fruit are ripe now and I don't have any room in my freezer. So I've literally got to pick them and cook them down now so I will have them later when I need them. Oh yeah, they're definitely on the edge of overripe now, and they've got little places where birds and bugs have been nipping into them. There's one on the ground even. So it's interesting, there are several plants like this that are just overloaded. This is so loaded it's pulling the whole plant down to the ground with the weight of the fruit on here. And there's another one just over there that way, and I've seen a few others in the area that are just as full. And I come out here every year around Labor Day and try to harvest these. Some years I have to search high and low just to find a few. This year they're everywhere. So you don't get a good harvest every year. And the crazy thing is we haven't had good rains this year. So what is the key factor? I have no idea. I definitely don't want to harvest them all because I want to leave some for the birds and I want to leave some for seeds. And you know, the ripe ones all are eaten by birds. Ow, son of a gun. They're sweet, but they have a strong flavor. They're not delicious. If you were surviving out here, yeah, you'd appreciate them. But if you just were looking for a snack, you would not. This one's huge. It's like a big old pickle. They call them banana yuccas, but I always thought they should rather be called pickle yuccas. It looks nothing like a banana. It does look vaguely like a pickle. You can just take your hands and just gently pull them to the side. Oh, right there.
Clear, crystalline sky to his right. Straight ahead stood the snow blue island of the Abajo Mountains.
An army of little white grubs. And now you know why I don't have these in my kitchen. They're all jumping off the edge of the table. Look, they're all suicidal or something. They get to the edge of the workbench and they just dive off. That's a lot of fruit right there. I'm going to be pretty busy cooking this all down. And you can tell by the bugs, I'm going to have to hurry because the bugs are literally eating it alive right now. So now that I've got it all cut up, I'm going to take it into my kitchen, I'm going to cover it with water, I'm going to put it on the stove and cook it for about 4 hours until they're all soft and mushy. And now, this is the worst part of the task. Because I've got to try to squeeze any remaining juice out of this material. Now I could just strain it out, just strain the liquid out. But the fruit is very soft and squishy and it's full of liquid. So I feel like I'd be throwing away a lot of good material that is going to make paint. And so I'm just kind of wringing it out in my hands before I toss it in this bucket because I want all that sticky liquid yucca fruit juice material, because that's what's going to become the paint. Now, I've often said that what would really work well for this would be a cider press. But I don't have a cider press, and cider presses aren't cheap. This is the best way I know how. Now, this is the worst part of the assignment because this cooked fruit is gross. It's gooky and soft and squishy and cold and clammy. It's not enjoyable, but it's how you do it. Well, let's talk briefly now about organic paint. Let me just take you back a little bit. Today, at some of the pueblos north of Albuquerque, New Mexico, potters still use organic paint made from boiled down Rocky Mountain bee plant. It's a tradition rooted in history because in ancient times, the use of organic paint was far more widespread than it is today, occurring all over the Southwest. The catch? We don't know exactly what plants they were using. Archaeologists studying ancient pottery sherds can tell us the black designs are carbon-based, but they can't pinpoint the plant species. It's tempting to assume ancient potters used Rocky Mountain bee plant, just like their descendants do today. And honestly, that's a reasonable guess. But there's a problem. Down in the low deserts of the southern Southwest, where ancient Salado potters crafted their iconic polychrome pottery between 1275 and 1400 AD, Rocky Mountain bee plant doesn't grow. So what were they using? As a potter and researcher, I've experimented with all sorts of plants to make organic paint, and many work beautifully. Here are a few that do the trick. Wild sunflower, wild mustard, tansy mustard, mesquite beans, and yucca fruit. These plants were likely available to ancient potters, but one clue really stood out to me. In 1901, anthropologist Matilda Cox Stevenson documented pottery making at Zuni Pueblo. She wrote, "After a thorough drying, the designs are painted with brushes made of yucca needles, the pigments having been ground in stone mortars and made into a paste with water, to which a syrup of yucca fruit is added. Water from boiled Cleome cerulata, that's Rocky Mountain bee plant, is mixed with black pigment." But I have found that this material made from yucca fruit does work for black carbon designs, as well as Rocky Mountain bee plant in my experiments. So it's a clue that perhaps this is something that grows in southern Arizona, bee plant does not. Perhaps yucca fruit is what they were using down here in Salado times. The pulp all kind of clogs up the pores of the bag, makes it hard to get all the liquid out. So be patient, squeeze it a little bit, move it around, get all the liquid out and leave that pulp because we don't want that in our paint. Okay, so now I'm going to leave that liquid that I just separated from the pulp, I'm going to leave that sitting in a bucket while I cook down the rest of this fruit, because I've got a limited amount of time before this fruit starts to spoil, and I don't want it sitting out here spoiling. It's already got enough bugs in it, it doesn't need more. So I'm going to cook down the rest of this fruit while that stuff sits and hopefully doesn't, ferment or anything. Maybe I should leave it inside the house where it's a little cooler. Once I've dealt with this pot the same way I have the other one just now, then I'll be ready to cook it all down into that thick, syrupy material that I use for paint. Once I had processed that second, slightly smaller batch of fruit, I combined the liquids from both batches into one big pot full of liquid, and I just boiled that down until there was enough that I could put it into a smaller pot. And then I put that on the stove and just kept cooking it down until it was a very thick, sticky liquid. And then I was ready to start putting it into containers. Okay, so I'm anticipating your next question, and that is, that's a pretty small container of paint. What are you going to do with that much paint? The truth is, this is a concentrated paint. So this is actually enough paint to paint many pots, potentially, depending, of course, on the size of the pot, how much paint goes onto it. So every time I use this, I'm not using it like this, really thick and sticky, but I'm adding water to it, and then I'm rehydrating it. Once it's the right consistency, I will apply it to the pot, then I'll leave it sit out and dry before I put the lid on it. That way it's not fermenting or spoiling inside of there. And this paint can last for years. It doesn't go bad as long as you make sure it's dry before you put the lid on it. The other thing you want to remember is when you add water to it, always use distilled water. Because if you have hard water where you live, and every time you add water to it, you're adding a little bit of calcium. And so over the course of many applications, adding water, drying out, adding water, drying out, that calcium can build up in your paint and cause kind of a white crust on your pottery, which you don't want. Now, This is an organic paint. So the primary way this is used is applied to a smectite clay slip and then fired in just the right way, and it can make black carbon designs on your pottery. The other thing it's good for is as an organic binder. When you're using mineral paint on your pottery, you're just using crushed up rock. And so that doesn't naturally lend itself to being paint. And so adding a little bit of this organic binder makes it sticky, makes it flow off of the brush evenly, keeps it from smudging before firing, those kind of things. So organic binder or organic paint. Now, if you'd like to learn more about how organic paint works, it's a little bit complicated. I will link a video up right over here where you can go into more detail about organic paint and how to do that. I appreciate you watching today. I'll catch you next time.